Let me ask you a question. What do you like about video games? Is it the unique, immersive quality of them? Maybe it's a specific style of gameplay that captivates you. Maybe you just enjoy getting lost in a good story. Whatever it is, I guarantee if you look hard enough, you'll find a concrete reason why video games are captivating to you, and which ones specifically appeal to you. But what if I told you there was a game out there that had a little something for everyone? A game that is so perfect. Okay, I'm gonna cut the crap, you know why you're here, let's talk about the Funny Me game. This game is not only my least favorite Pikmin game, it's not only my least favorite game, but it is a genuine stain on a masterpiece of a game series. But JGPanther, I don't think it's that bad. Shut. Jibanyan from Yokai Watch. Ripley, what are you doing over there? Jibanyan from Yokai Watch is a laid-back cat. We eventually find the evil genie, Golden Freddy,
was that the bite?
In a cave with a whole bunch of treasure he stole. That the gameplay dives into is one thing, but it's even better when you consider the fact that you can make these characters literally anything you want. Freddy Fazbear can canonically be best friends with Jotaro Kujo. Okay, so Five Nights at Freddy's is very well known for having an extremely easy-to-follow story. Our jobs consist of fun activities such as repairing Frederick, committing assault, making soda, and of course, the one that made every furry in the world buy this game. You people need help. Now, all of this is rather... gosh, how do I put this without sounding rude? Oh gee willikers, I'm not so sure. Well, I guess I could call it not fucking scary. But a game series that I've always been a fan of has recently caught my attention for its fan base. Pokemon. I've always liked Pokemon, but recently, I've started to really get invested in the finer details of it, and I've even started shiny hunting a lot more thanks to a certain friend of mine. Gee, I wonder who that could be. Despite all of this, however, the community has stuck by the series through thick and thin. People were upset by this situation, but there was hope for something better. And the next game we got was much better. If your definition of better is this...
I just think they're neat.
Created by Absol Blog's Pokemon, this is an event where the community takes a week to specifically hunt in the Safari Zone, a place in certain Pokemon games where the Pokemon you're trying to catch can run away from you. But you also don't have to throw out your own Pokemon, so the encounters go by much faster. It's a really interesting risk versus reward system. I actually participated this year and was able to find a shiny Tangela in Pokemon Platinum after 9,044 encounters, and it ran away after I threw 8 Safari Balls. I'm still mad about that. If you want to hear more about this year's Safari Week, I'd suggest checking out MJ the Shiny Hunter's video on the event. I make a bit of an appearance there, so, you know, it's gotta be good. In any case, shiny hunting has become a big hobby of mine. In fact, I'm actually shiny hunting while I'm recording this script. I'm doing some Masuda method hunting in Pokemon Violet, and, yeah, we'll see if I get anything. Hey, future me, if I end up getting any shinies from the eggs that I'm collecting in this picnic while I'm recording, you should put it on the screen. Thanks, future me. You're a G. Shiny Fuecoco! Oh my god, Shiny Fuecoco! I wasn't recording, so this isn't my full reaction, but Shiny frickin' Fuecoco, oh my god. Oh my goodness, guys, we got it! We fricking got it. Oh, this is so going in the video. Let me introduce you to the Crumbug. This is one of the most common enemies in Hey Pikmin. Now, the Crumbug is described as a part of the Breadbug family, and its design is heavily based off that of a regular Breadbug. In the mainline games, a Breadbug is a non-lethal enemy type which roams around the map collecting items to bring back to its nest. The problem with this is, sometimes it will take items you need, and can generally be a real nuisance if left to its own devices. Fighting a Breadbug works as such. By landing a Pikmin directly on its back, you can deal a small sliver of damage to it, meaning that Breadbugs take an extremely long time to kill this way. However, by assigning Pikmin to carry an item that it's trying to carry, and putting more Pikmin than required onto that item will allow them to overpower the Breadbug. Once they make it back to base with that item, the Breadbug will hit its head on the onion the item was sucked into, dealing massive damage. What's really cool about the Breadbug is it's a species that's presented as less of a predator to the Pikmin and more of a competitor. It's one of the only non-lethal enemies in the Pikmin series that goes out of its way to not interact with the Pikmin. Even enemies that don't kill Pikmin, such as the puffy Blowhog or swooping Snitchbug, have attacks that limit Pikmin abilities. They're making an effort to protect themselves. whereas a bread bug is simply trying to gather resources and only has a problem with the Pikmin trying to carry the items that it wants. It's a competing species in the planet's ecosystem, which is a really cool concept and one of the reasons why this is one of my favorite enemies in the Pikmin series. How does the crumb bug in Hey Pikmin work? Well, considering the fact that it has no nest, we have no base, plus it can't pick up any items since there's only like 3 per level, its mechanics work entirely differently. A crumb bug's weak point is on its face. Hitting that directly will insta-kill it. However, hitting any other part of the body will insta-kill the Pikmin you threw. What? Not only is this mechanic complete BS for the most common enemy type in the game, but it works against the control scheme that's built into the game. If a crumb bug runs into a Pikmin, or a Pikmin runs into a crumb bug, then the Pikmin dies, meaning that if you accidentally throw a Pikmin over the crumb bug, then they will immediately try to come back to you and run into their death. So even if you miss the creature entirely, it doesn't matter because it's going to kill anything you throw that isn't a direct hit on its weak spot. And since it's always moving, that's not exactly easy to do, is it? If this mechanic sounds familiar to you, that's because it should. Let me introduce you to the Smoky Prog. This is a secret, optional boss in Pikmin 1. The way this guy works is that it has a single weak spot on its face, with every other part of its body causing an insta-kill for any Pikmin that it touches. Do you see where I'm going with this? Granted, the Smoky Prog has far more health than a crumb bug, making this fight far more catastrophic than a fight with a crumb bug, but yet again, this is a secret boss. The developers knew how tough this kind of mechanic was going to be, so it's not required. It's just there if you want to fight it. This enemy does return in Pikmin 4 and acts in a very similar way. Isn't that crazy though? The fact that combat-wise, the crumb bug has more in common with the actual Grim Reaper of the Pikmin series than it does with the enemy type the game says it's related to. The whole point of the Smoky Prog is its challenge level. It's the fact that it does insta-kill Pikmin. Once they're caught in that smoke, there's no way of saving them. Pikmin can't take very many hits to begin with, but almost every other enemy in the series has an attack that's avoidable in some way. Bulborbs have a chewing animation. If you're able to defeat the Bulborb before it finishes that animation, then the Pikmin it was trying to eat won't die. Bulborbs have a faster chewing animation and can eat more Pikmin at a time, etc, etc. The Smoky Prog is different because it doesn't attack. Simply missing and hitting a different part of the body will kill a Pikmin with no chance of saving them. That's a scary mechanic and very fitting for a completely optional secret boss fight. That type of mechanic is not fitting for the most common enemy in a Pikmin game. It's not a crazy difficult boss meant to test your skills, it's an annoyance with no room for failure. It's frustrating, not fun.
So these things were in Ruin, and would stop the player from taking the mask off once it was on. This one is currently active, meaning we would be unable to take the mask off if we had one on in the first place. Okay, so we deactivate the device, and what the hell does that do for us again? I mean, sure, by the rules of Ruin, we can assume that we would now be able to take off the mask, but I mean, it's not like we have one on. The poster, the inhibitor, the arcade machine, the Faz wrench, hell, even the minigames before this whole moment have been connecting us back to Ruin, and now, more specifically, the Vanny mask. No tutorial pops up here, nothing like press the A button to take the mask off. No, nothing indicates that you even have a mask to take off than the imagery in this room. The poster shows us an image of someone reaching up to their face to take the mask off, imploring us to do the exact same thing. Those few seconds where you piece together exactly what the game is trying to tell you feel more like minutes, with how time seems to stop as your eyes widen under the headset and you piece together what this game has even been. When hovering over an object, a little blue highlight appears around the item. This is to indicate that this item is able to be picked up. So if we press the trigger on the controller, we'll pick up the item. Simple as that. So with nothing else to try and everything seeming to point towards it, the player reaches their hand up to their face, still slightly doubting they even have a mask on. I mean, how? We never found one, so if we have one on, we must have had it on since the very start of the game, which would imply... No, that can't be it. But sure enough, a little blue highlight pops up around your face. Something is there, and only now can you grab it. There's nothing else it could be. So you pull the mask off and see the world for what it really is. This was never some random pizzeria hub world. The mall was never in working position. No, this whole time, nothing you've seen has been real. You can't trust a single thing you've seen or done. The hub world is revealed to be the location from FNAF 6, which, as we know, now lies under the Mega Pizzaplex. That's where we are, under the mall. Suddenly, a lot more of the game starts to make sense. Why are the sister location animatronics here? Well, this is the location from FNAF 6. This is the place that those souls were put to rest. Why are we exploring the mall when it's supposed to be in ruins? Well, that's because it is. But why does the imagery in this game not match up with that? Because nothing we've seen has been real. And now, we can finally see the reality of our situation.
The subject of money is, and always will be, touchy, but at the end of the day, as long as you're smart about how you spend your money, make sure necessities are covered, spending your money on something you enjoy will never be a waste. If you can afford to blow $200 on a collector edition of a game, as long as you're happy with that purchase, no one has the right to call that a waste of money. I started scripting this video with the idea that the answer to this question would be extremely cut and dry. Of course video game players waste money. Have you seen the prices on some of this stuff? But the more I thought about it, the more I started to disagree with my conclusion. Yes, $300 for a game I've already played simply to own a version that I can't play is absurd on paper. I knew that when I bought the damn thing. And yet, I would sooner break my leg than sell it. It's important to me. Past financial value. I have an emotional connection to it. Which leads us back to the question at hand. Do video game players waste money? No. Honestly, who cares what I blow my paychecks on? You may consider it a waste as an outsider, but with all due respect, that opinion doesn't matter. If you find value in something and you want to buy it, then go ahead. As long as you're not hurting people who financially depend on you or putting yourself in a bad situation, there's no reason for not buying something that an outside person can provide that can be taken seriously because it's not their money. If you want to spend thousands of dollars on Fortnite because it makes you happy, then do it. If you want to collect memorabilia of some random game you like, then go ahead. If you want to buy another Switch, I'm not stopping you. There's always a cheaper option to experience a game, whether that be waiting for a price drop or using a cloud gaming service. But if you don't want to wait, and if you care about owning this game, that's $60, maybe $70. It's not a waste. So, do video game players waste money? No. The answer is no. It's not. It's not a Pikmin game. It's not a fucking Pikmin game. It's not a motherfucking Pikmin game. I fucking hate this game so much. Oh my god. I hate Pikmin. It's so holy fucking shit. I hate this game so bad. Oh my god, I hate this game. It's so bad. Dude, I fucking hate it. I hate it so much. I hate it so much. I hate it. It's so bad. It's so bad. Plus, despite so much creativity, the game still manages to have an amazing story on its own. And it's that creativity that makes the story work. Miitopia tells the story of people losing who they are, becoming soulless husks without any personality or individuality. Hey, that rhymed. The dark spirit is a metaphor for depression. That feeling of a worthless existence, like you're not contributing anything to the world. Miitopia is about the importance of every single person on Earth. It's saying that the answer to the question, why should I live, is the question itself. You should live for no other reason than that you get to. Make your own path. Be your own person. Don't blend into the crowd. Don't become faceless. Seeing that message represented by yourself, your favorite characters, or some crazy dumb-looking me that you created, emphasizes this idea even more. You exist to be uniquely you, because nobody else can claim to be that. Nobody else had the same Miitopia experience that you did. That right there is why this game is special. Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all. Pokemon, just kidding, go fuck yourself. In June of 2023, Nintendo held one of the greatest directs they've ever held. Pikmin re-releases, Mario RPG Remake, Pikmin 4 demo, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, more information on Pikmin 4! Okay, maybe I'm the only one who thought this Direct was the best one ever, but regardless, in between the amazing news and bombshell announcements, Nintendo announced something interesting. Princess Peach was getting her own game. We didn't know much about it other than that this is Princess Peach and she is in fact getting a video game, but that alone was enough to get people excited. Peach hasn't starred in her own game in decades. This was a really great chance to create something truly unique and to introduce a new style of gameplay to the Mario series. That didn't happen. Instead, we got Princess Peach Showtime. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't a bad game, far from it, because I think calling this a game at all is an insult to all video games everywhere. Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all, Pokemon, for $4.99 a month.
This is the first time in a long time that a game has made me genuinely excited for the future of gaming as a medium. Cool moments like taking off the mask couldn't be accomplished in a regular game. Plus, the game adapts other FNAF minigames from the series into great VR experiences that yet again couldn't be done anywhere else. When a new FNAF game releases, I constantly see people talking about what it could mean for the lore or what each little tiny detail could mean, but I never see them talked about as games. Granted, this is mostly for good reason, as a lot of them aren't too special, especially the early ones. However, I think the lack of care for what this game does in the department of, well, being a video game is a criminal disservice to it. Help Wanted 2 has reignited my faith in virtual reality, and has made me genuinely excited to see what people come up with next for developing VR games, all because of some goofy-looking mask. Honestly, I'd go as far as to say that this is the first time in a long time that the future of video games has seemed so exciting. Like, anything can happen. Like, how when you're a kid and it seems like there's no limitations and games are just these magical things. And I feel like some of the interesting ways VR technology is being utilized in the industry is making that childhood fantasy come closer and closer to a genuine reality. This game, and specifically that one moment of taking off the mask, exemplify the best way to utilize visual storytelling and environmental persuasion to make the player figure out what's going on without being told a single explicit detail. That's always been FNAF's thing from a storytelling perspective, but seeing that same strategy applied to gameplay is honestly one of the most immersive experiences I've ever had in a video game. You're not told what button to press to take off your mask, you just do it. You physically grab it, and you physically put it down. That level of immersion is what makes me so excited. And it's what future VR games should aspire to be.
During reproduction, after an egg is fertilized by a sperm, any excess chromosomes are usually discarded through a process called meiosis. But occasionally fails to occur, and a bulborb individual will develop irregularly due to this chromosomal abnormality. Specimens like this one are stronger than the average bulborb and can exhibit more aggressive behavior. However, they're not able to procreate and will never reach sexual maturity. Quote from the Pikmin 4 Piclopedia. If this sounds familiar, it's because it should, as meiosis is a real occurrence that happens in all sexual reproduction and can cause genetic differences when the process fails to occur properly. In humans, this mistake in meiosis results in that person having Down syndrome. This is not the video to go into detail as to what that is, but it's actually quite common in humans, and you've probably heard of it before. In the Pikmin series, it seems that this process occurring within a grub dog will result in a jumbo bulborb, a much larger and more aggressive bulborb. However, what's most important about this discovery is the fact that this means bulborb cum is canon. Well, what's cool about this mechanic is that archetypes can inherit skills from other archetypes that a certain character has used. So in this instance, I was able to switch the protagonist archetype to something else, and since the protag had studied the healer archetype before this new archetype I was using could inherit one skill from any other archetype I had studied, so of course I chose a healing skill, just to not miss out on the benefits of that other archetype. It's not as good as having a whole array of healing moves, but in a situation like this, it's what I needed to do to give myself the advantage against this boss. There's just one little problem with this though. I had already expended almost all of my MP while going through this dungeon, and I knew that this boss was weak to... My alarmo just went off. Robo is another Nintendo franchise which has never done that well, but it has a big following and a dedicated fan base. In 2015, Chibi Robo received its first game in a long time. That game was Chibi Robo Ziplash. This game took the character of Chibi Robo, a character with a whole series of 3D adventure games, and put him in a generic 2D platformer. Do you see where this is going? Ziplash sold horribly and tanks the reputation of the franchise, a franchise that was good, but just never had any opportunity to sell too well. Unlike Pikmin, however, Chibi Robo was never given another chance. Because of the poor sales of Ziplash, the franchise all but died, and we haven't seen another Chibi Robo game to this day. It's situations like this that are what's so frustrating about the gaming industry to me. There are now legions of fans who may never see another game in the franchise they hold so dear, and for what? It's not like Ziplash was another great game. It wasn't anywhere near like any other game in the series, and yet it gets to decide the fate of an entire intellectual property? This is the situation Pikmin fans were worried about, the complete end of the series because of a game that nobody liked in the first place.
But even outside of social connectivity, Pokemon has always been determined to let the games themselves connect, namely through transferring Pokemon throughout generations. As far back as Generation 3, any Pokemon you caught could be sent up through the games over the years, and eventually into the most recent games. If I catch a Pokemon in my copy of Pokemon Emerald for the Game Boy Advance, then I can take a backwards compatible DS with a Gen 4 game like Diamond to transfer it into that game. Then I can take another DS with Black or White in it to transfer them on up to Gen 5. Then I can take that cartridge, put it in my 3DS with Poke Transporter on it to get that Mon into Pokemon Bank, which I can then transfer into Pokemon Home on my Nintendo Switch, and then put that exact same Pokemon from my old-ass Game Boy into Pokemon Scarlet or Pokemon Violet. At all. I mean, sure, all these minigames are fun and all, but they aren't making me jump out of my seat, piss my pants, and hide under the covers like the first Hub Wanted did. The world just seems too happy. Like, something here isn't right, but I can't tell what. I guess the sister location minigames are pretty scary. Breaker Room is quite easy, all things considered, but still evokes that same fear of what's lurking in the dark, and the Entered minigame is great as per usual. Carousel isn't super spooky per se, but it gets really stressful as it goes along. Arts and Crafts looks like a Cocomelon AI content farm from hell, so I'm definitely shitting my pants. But nothing here is all that terrifying on the level that something like Night Terrors in the original Hub Wanted was.
If you know anything about me, it's that I love me some Pikmin. So yeah, I have personally gone out of my way to buy all the different versions of the same damn games on each of the consoles they've been re-released on. GameCube, Wii, Wii U, Switch. Even if I rarely play some of these versions because I prefer one over the other, it doesn't make me any less excited to buy it. I own 2 copies of Pikmin 4, a digital one so I could do the midnight release, and a physical one that I simply bought to have. I'm gonna keep it sealed because what reason do I have to open it? I can already play the game on any of the 3 Switches I own! Not to mention, Sega's most recent money-hungry tactic being the Digital Deluxe Edition, forcing you to buy the most expensive version of the game to get all the unnecessary Day 1 DLC at a little discount with the promise of being able to play the game digitally a few days earlier than the physical version will release. Of course, if you pre-order the regular digital edition, you still have to wait it out, so why not fork over those extra $10, maybe $20 to be one of the first people to ever play this shitty Sonic 3 remaster. Yeah, you want to pay an extra $10 on this already $60 collection of decades-old games so you can play the improved versions early? See, here's the thing, Sega. I could already play these games a few decades early. You want to know how? It's called owning a Sega Genesis! Let me ask you a question. How do you like spending your money? Video games are an expensive hobby. There's no getting around that. So, if that's a hobby of yours, you're gonna be forking over the cash. I mean, if you want to enjoy a modern game to its fullest potential, you're gonna need a PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, or a powerful enough PC. The consoles are going to be far less expensive, but if you want to take advantage of features, you'll need a 4K TV set, which can cost you thousands. We'll say about $2,000. Oh, and make sure your house has Ethernet if the games are online, because Lord knows the servers these companies will be putting out are not going to work as promised. Alright, go ahead and add an extra controller to the mix if the game is co-op, since your console is only gonna come with one, but keep in mind that those extra controllers can cost as much as a new game. Speaking of new games, let's pick out the game we want to play, pay $70 United States to play it on launch, and it'll be on sale for $40 just the following month. Pay an extra $10 to get the Digital Deluxe Edition so we can play it 4 days early, and don't forget the $40 Day 1 DLC. Of course, if you're a real fan, you'll get the $300 Collector's Edition, including such luxuries as even more plastic, and don't forget that subscription service to play online. So, if you're someone who doesn't own any of this stuff and you desperately want to play a modern game the second it's available in the highest quality technologically possible, with all that day one DLC, we'll say it launches with about $30 worth, and the junk that comes in the collector's edition, that's going to cost you, let's see, $2,000 TV, $500 console, $70 game, make that $100 counting DLC, and now add another $100 for the collector's edition, you'll be spending about $2,700. Enjoy the game. I mean, I once walked into a store and impulsively spent $300 on retro game stuff. I've been saving up for a while and wanted to treat myself. What did I get? A game I can't even play. Persona 3 is one of my favorite games of all time. No, you know what? It's my favorite game of all time. Full stop. Whether we're talking about Reload, the original, Fez, Portable, it doesn't matter. I love this game. So when I saw this, I wanted it. For no other reason than that it held emotional significance to me. This is a factory-sealed collector's edition of Persona 3 Fez from 2008. Look at this advertisement for P4 on the back. It feels like a time capsule. This thing has been kept in great condition, and I'm so glad it has because it looks brand new. Every penny spent on this was worth it. I don't regret spending $300 whole on this because, to me, this isn't a waste of money. Releasing the Dark Spirit as it attempts to take control of Olimar yet again. The Great Sage quickly traps it in a bubble and explains how it came to be. A long, long time ago, he was just a normal human, although he was very sad and lonely. Why does everyone ignore me? Please, anyone, just notice me. Now I see, it's this face of mine, this no-good, plain, boring face. And with that, he cast away his own face. He was rid of the thing he resented so badly. But without a face, how could he cling to existence? Before long, he had disappeared, leaving behind a soul full of hatred, malice, and envy. Hearing this, we get a choice. We can break the curse and destroy it forever, or we can save it. Sorry, I made a bit of a typo there in the script. What I meant to say was, there's only one option. If you choose to kill the Dark Spirit, get out of here, you're not welcome. The Great Sage explains that, to save it, we need to give it a face to attach to. And so, it's time to pick the last me. I looked far and wide, searching through access codes after access code, to find a me to fit the role. I had a few ideas, but nothing really hit me as perfect for the role. That's when it hit me. I knew exactly who the Dark Spirit was. It was the me I've been avoiding putting in this game this whole time. That me was, well, me. This whole playthrough, I've avoided putting myself into this game, hiding behind funny combinations of iconic characters from media I enjoy and laughing at the hilarious situation the game puts them in. But let's not forget how this game started. It asks for a me that represents yourself. The main character was meant to be you. In the 3DS version, when I played it all the way back in 2017, it was me. Video games have always been an escape for me, something to do that was past the monotony of everyday activity and boring existence. Without giving away too many personal details, I've always struggled with depression. In fact, I can't remember a time where I wasn't self-conscious about something. In games with a character creator, I always opt to make silly OCs or funny-looking abominations I made with the settings. I've never really been the type to put myself in a game. I'm not sure what came over me, but this time around, I really resonated with the Dark Spirit's story. If it were possible, I'm not sure I can say with complete certainty that I wouldn't cast away my own face. I recently moved to a completely new state. I'm going to a completely new school, meeting completely new people, and I'm gonna be honest, I feel like an outsider. This isn't my home. These aren't my people. I'm not important here. I'm just a faceless, worthless, no-good outsider. Why does everyone ignore me? Please, anyone, just notice me. It's time to stop running. I'm going to put myself in the world I created. I'm going to acknowledge my face. Miitopia is a lot of things. Repetitive, innovative, boring, hilarious, creative, and even somewhat derivative. But the story it brings forth is so in-depth that it can have an emotional impact with no personal connection. But even so, it leaves gaps that you have to fill in to make those moments all the more powerful. Most people aren't going to have the emotional revelation I had playing this silly little Nintendo game, but those that can be creative enough to forge their own meaningful experience out of Miitopia, no matter how in-depth, always leave the experience with a whole new outlook on the tale woven by this game. Even if all you're doing is making the Mii's silly little guys and random things from access codes, you still had a part in selecting those roles. That's what's important. The impact you make. Money is an interesting thing, isn't it? We all depend on it. It's the root of all problems and the solution to most hardships. Everyone has a different relationship with money, from barely thinking about it to never knowing how you'll get it next. No two people will ever be in the same position regarding money. However, one thing that it seems like everyone can agree on is that money cannot buy happiness. But it can buy me a GameCube.
What I mean by all of this is that we as a society are so quick to refer to someone or something as such a hyper-specific term, based on first impressions, rather than the whole package of what you're referring to. When someone is labeled as a bad person, it feels like people latch on to details of who they are and what they did, but on the other hand, when someone is referred to as a good person or can accomplish something specific, we always latch on to that specific detail of that person. When, generally speaking, we must look at the whole of someone and who they are rather than what they are. That's not to say that people don't deserve backlash for being horrible, or that people don't deserve praise for doing something amazing, but someone so good could have selfish or nefarious intentions behind their actions. Nothing in this world is as black and white as humans versus a monster, because honestly, are they not the same thing? At first, I didn't think too deeply about this detail, because the game didn't give me much to work with. That was until I heard this line.
But our town's just rubble now. A footnote in history. The human that destroyed us is all we'll ever be known for.
This happens just a few hours into the prologue, and I think it puts the message of this game into perspective. People are always so quick to label others a villain or a monster that, even if that may be true, they don't stop to think about what those actions truly mean. When we learn about terrible events in history, what do we cover? The people that caused them, mostly, from the Trail of Tears and Andrew Jackson, to that one thing that happened in World War II. I don't want to get my video taken down, but if you've ever opened a history textbook, you know what I'm talking about. To even now with what's going on in Israel. We rarely focus on the victims of these terrible events. Instead, we focus on the monsters who brought them about. But isn't that what they want? The attention? Yeah, so instead of providing support to the families and friends of the people who lost their lives, let's focus on the humans responsible for this trauma and let the names of those people fade into obscurity as history forgets that these numbers and metrics once represented lives. Naming the monsters of metaphor humans draws a connection to this idea. And I think this was the point of the developers in using this naming convention, to make these terrible events in this fantasy world feel more real to a grounded audience.
So, as I was researching this video, I was fully expecting to see that orange bulborbs appear in the primordial thicket, because I could have sworn they were there, but I guess I was just thinking of other autumn areas from other games, so no, they aren't in that area, surprisingly. But what's fucking insane to me is that there is only one orange bulborb in the entirety of Pikmin 4. One! Such an iconic enemy appears once It's in some Dandori challenges and one of the battles as well, but in the actual story mode, there is only one single orange Bulborb in the whole game, and it's on sub-level 2 of the Kingdom of Beasts. You know, that cave whose whole gimmick is comprising virtually every single type of Bulborb? My dog got added to the game just to appear in a glorified highlight reel and never appear again. The fucking mammoth snoot whacker was used more. The crusted rum pump was used more. And out of pure curiosity, I checked, and the dwarf orange Bulborb, the creature whose whole MO is copying these guys, appear not only in 3 separate caves, including the one the orange Bulborb is in, but there are a total of 15 of them! That's still a low number, but 9 of them are in caves that have nothing to do with orange Bulborbs. Who the fuck are they copying? Justice for the orange Bulborb, the goat deserved better. Even the grub chucker got more love. This is insane. Wait, I just realized, including night missions, the Smoky Prog appears more. There's 6 of them! Oh my god! There's 6 Smoky Progs and 1 orange Bulborb! Oh my god!
And I knew that this boss was weak to piercing skills. That's not a problem, I should be able to use a synthesis attack to deal some good damage, but I don't have the MP to do that consistently. A synthesis attack is an attack that draws on the MP from 2 different characters on the battlefield to do a super attack. Different combinations of archetypes produce different results in what a synthesis move does. I had discovered that a move that was extremely effective against this boss was the one I got from having both a warrior and a knight use a synthesis move. Problem was, I only have enough MP on the knight to get one of these attacks off. So what did I do? I switched the protagonist to the knight archetype, and with a combination of skill inheritance, attack buffs, and some well-timed synthesis attacks, I was able to dish out enough damage to eventually beat the boss, even in what seemed like an impossible situation. To make a long story short, my creativity and how I set up my different archetypes allowed me to turn what was an unfair and frustrating boss into a complete cakewalk once I nailed down my strategy. And it's this flexibility in the game design that makes Metaphor's gameplay loop work, in my opinion. It's about planning and creative thinking rather than brute force and spamming the same moves over and over again like so many turn-based RPG games do.
Contrary to popular belief, the Water Dumple is actually a part of the Grubdog family. The Water Dumple, otherwise known as the... oh boy, I don't even know how I'm gonna pronounce this. The Ichthyosa felinus. If this was the same planet, none of these problems would be here, but for some reason, they decided to make this game take place on a new planet, which just boggles my mind, because you're breaking the lore entirely by doing so. Aren't you being a bit harsh? It's just a video game after all. Yeah. You're right. It doesn't matter too much. Is what I would say if it weren't for the fact that this is a game series that goes out of its way to give entire journal entries from multiple characters to give entire rundowns of the species, scientific name, behavior, and sometimes even evolutionary patterns of every single living thing in each game. There is a damn Piclopedia entry on a motherfucking dandelion in Pikmin 2. A dandelion! A teeny tiny decoration that most players will barely even notice is given an entire breakdown in the Piclopedia. This series is so meticulous about its world and the ecosystem it has that I could write an entire 2-hour video essay on the evolution and genetic variations of the Grubdog family and still have more fun doing so than playing this game. And you know what? I'll do it! If this video reaches 1,000 likes, I will make that video essay, and I will go into such detail that it puts this game to shame. One thing I've neglected to mention until now is the text boxes. Unlike basically every other game on the planet, these text boxes will automatically go by. There's no button prompt or anything, which not only makes this a slog for older players, as now I have to wait through a 30-minute yap sesh from Lightbulb McGee over here, but these boxes also go away too fast. Like, I'm not stupid, I'm able to read them in time, but considering the fact that little kids are going to be playing this game, and the fact that the game seems to be designed for little kids, it's baffling that so much of the enjoyment that comes from this experience relies on the ability of being able to read fast enough before the text boxes piss out. I wouldn't be complaining about this for any other game, because contrary to popular belief, I can read. But I have to bring it up here because when you have a game that feels like it's designed for an infant, why is it not accessible to them? And all the plays transform into a sort of foil to the original story. It's up to Peach to travel throughout the theater, step into the hero role of all these different plays, and bring them back to what they're supposed to be. As a certified theater kid, let me just say that when I heard this premise, I got very excited for this game at first. But as I mentioned in the previous section, the game just kind of stops and ends at a conceptual level. When you get to the actual gameplay, there's barely any variety at all. Again, the aesthetic of the game is great and incredibly diverse, but don't be fooled by the backgrounds and costumes, because the gameplay barely ever changes. Most of Princess Peach Showtime's gameplay can be summed up like this.
Press the A button. Okay, now press the B button. Okay, now you're gonna want to press the A button again. Okay, just hit the A button one more time. Okay, that's good. Now press the B. The Salon minigame makes you focus on Roxy, utilizing headset position to make sure you don't take your eyes off of her. Not that this fanbase would ever think about doing that, you sick fuck. However, I've started to think about the state of VR gaming as of late simply because of one recently released game. That game is Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted 2. That's right, the sequel to the VR game that's simply a regular game put into VR is one of the only VR games that I consider to not work in any other context other than VR. Try saying that one 5 times fast.
Okay, so, let's address the elephant in the room. One of the ways in which Pikmin fans have attempted to connect this game to the overall timeline is to use this ending scene to imply that the events of the game were all a dream that Olimar was having after falling asleep at the wheel. And this ending cutscene is what actually happened. While I would love to believe this idea, and I actually think it makes a lot of sense in terms of what the game provides us with, like, it's been proven scientifically that dreams use familiar elements of everyday life and combine them to make something new. This would explain why this new planet is so similar to PNF 404. It's something that Olimar is dreaming, so it just uses creatures and environments from that planet to fill in the gaps. This does solve a lot of inconsistencies, and makes it so I don't have to think about this game when discussing Pikmin lore ever again. However, if this ending cutscene is the only real part of the game, why is he still in the SS Dolphin 2? Even if this theory were true, we still have this entirely new ship which doesn't fit into the overall Pikmin story in any good way at all, because no matter how you interpret this game, it still implies that this ship exists, which, as I've said, it fucking shouldn't!
He says that the Dark Spirit took control of him while he was working in an HP banana factory. Wait, pause. A banana factory? Do you make them by hand? Are they not grown? Wouldn't that just be a banana orchard? Are bananas grown in orchards? Hang on. People often assume that the banana fruit grows on trees. However, the banana is a high herb which can grow up to 15 meters. There are over 1,000 different varieties, blah, blah, blah. Bananas are grown in tropical regions with high temperatures. Whatever. The point is they're grown, not produced. A banana factory? Are they made out of plastic in this universe? Have I been feeding my party members plastic? Hang on, Metopia Wiki to the rescue. HP bananas cost 100 gold and can be found in chests, yada yada yada. Oh, here we go. The Dark Lord worked in an HP banana factory. Are you not going to elaborate? I mean, I guess you can grow bananas in a factory if that's what the factory is for, but he literally says he would make HP bananas, not grow them. In battle, he says, take this HP banana I made. Even if he meant he grew it, he couldn't have grown all these that fast. It's implied he's creating them on the spot. But how? It's a f***ing fruit. So, what I want to talk about in this video is, why? Why do companies sell us these overpriced versions of games for a slight upgrade or kinda cool collectible, when there's options out there for 10 times cheaper without sacrificing much? Xbox Game Pass, secondhand consoles, cloud gaming if you're the spawn of Satan, even just waiting for a discount. There's so many ways to game the system, so
Why do they try to sell us this junk? Because dumbasses like me buy it! Speaking of pre-orders, we can't forget those now, can we? Spend your hard-earned money for the promise of a game, and we'll double promise you a free cosmetic as thanks. That way, everyone online will know just how much you care. You really care, don't you? So, seeing that idea fully realized in this game is not only really cool just from a coming full circle perspective, but it's also incredibly charming. Plus, the idea that the power-ups are just costume changes for Peach is a very unique and fun way to introduce new styles of gameplay elegantly into the level design, by having her literally take on the starring role in a stage play. But that's just it. The game is charming in its look, and at face value seems like it'd be a fun time. But the aesthetic is just about all this game has going for it, and once we get past that, the game's flaws start to really stick out. Boy, this was the shortest part in any of my videos ever. I already mentioned this in terms of console upgrades, but let's not forget about those sweet, sweet limited edition deals. Splatoon-themed Switch, Spider-Man-themed PS4, Target-themed Game Boy. Why does this exist again? Speaking of Target, we've got store-exclusive deals and games and pre-order bonuses. Why buy the digital version when you'll miss out on that plastic box? Why buy the physical version when you're gonna miss out on the midnight release? Here's a great idea, just buy both!
One last thing I'd like to bring up is the humans. The humans are what this world's inhabitants call a specific type of monster. That's right, the monsters you fight are called humans, but the human-like residents of this world are not. They're only referred to by their tribe, which, the more I think about it, the more tribe seems less like social constructs, like what the name implies, and more like the species of these people. Maybe that's the point, though. Something that seems so definitive is referred to by a term that we see as, by definition, malleable, showing the inequality in this world as a whole and calling attention to the idea that, despite how different these people are, there's nothing that makes any of these tribes definitively better than one another, and yet everyone in this world seems to know and take as a fact this social hierarchy of the tribes. Like, the game keeps referring to this whole lower versus higher tribes thing, but it seems a bit weird, doesn't it? Like, the Clamar are this hugely prominent tribe, basically the only one with full rights, and yet there are plot points about how they had to develop igniters, which are tools that help people cast magic, and yet there exists an entire race of people, the fairies, who are just born with the ability to cast magic. Here's a tribe with wings, here's a tribe with incredible hearing, here's a tribe with incredible sight, and yet all of these people are considered lower class? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that this whole plot point is a metaphor for, say it with me everyone, racism!
Okay, so here's my general understanding of the Grubdog family. First and foremost, water dumples are their own thing. They exist on their own. Good for them. As for everything else, well, from what I have gathered, all other Grubdogs start life as a Bulborb larva. This is called their pre-molt. They then become an albino dwarf Bulborb in the first molt, and it's at this point that we start to see different subspecies. In terms of the second molt, the only options we see in the games are dwarf bullbears and frosty dwarf bulborbs, both of which become spotty bullbears and frosty bulborbs respectively. Once reaching molt 3, the other third molt grubdogs that an albino dwarf can become are of course the basic bulborb, the orange bulborb, the whip-tongue bulborb, the fiery bullblacks, and the hairy bulborb depending on genes and/or environment. Generally speaking, this is the growing cycle of the average grubdog, but if there is a chromosomal mutation during meiosis, we could see a jumbo bulborb instead. Where things get a little complicated is the Emperor and Empress bullblack subspecies. Bulborbs, and maybe even hairy bulborbs and orange bulborbs that are female, can grow into an Empress bullblacks to form a matriarchal environment for new bulborb larvae. So we could refer to an Empress as the optional fourth molt of the grub dogs. The Emperor, though? Well, I'm not so sure, but from everything I've seen, it seems likely that the Emperor is simply another third molt variation of the grub dogs. The Sovereign Bullblacks is an older version of the Emperor, so this too could maybe be referred to as a fourth molt. And of course, if a Bulborb dies, it might be infected by a Toxstool or a parasitic Pikmin, but at that point, they are no longer a grub dog. Some spotty bullbears may also be immortal, I guess?
So one thing that we can see in gameplay that is not covered literally anywhere is the fact that in Pikmin 2, if you kill a bull bear or a Gatling Groink and don't take their body back to base in time, they will simply come back to life. This could be interpreted as simply knocking out the enemy, but in the bull bear's case, we see this enemy in games beside Pikmin 2, so while the Gatling Groink gets the benefit of the doubt, the spotty bull bear becomes a mystery in this sense, as in Pikmin 1, they can be killed just like any other enemy. They changed this in Pikmin 2, and then in 3 and 4, they no longer have this ability despite exhibiting the behaviors that the bull bear did in Pikmin 2, that being a roaming enemy patrolling a set path. This little fact isn't relevant for the purposes of this video, but it's still a trait that some bull bears have seemed to have, which is a mechanic which has just flat out never returned to the series, so I thought I should mention it. But you want to know what really hurts? The fact that so many people aren't even willing to give this franchise a chance because of what Hey Pikmin did. I know so many people who say they don't like Pikmin, and when I've asked what they've played, it's always the demo for that one 3DS game. Because at the time, the only other free way to experience a Pikmin game was the demo for 3 on Wii U. Guess what was the more popular console? Which one kept getting made after even the Switch launched? What do people have more fond memories of? The 3DS! So when Pikmin didn't even get a game on the Switch until 2020, with that only being a simple re-release of Pikmin 3, even though the game did perform well, the damage had already been done. So many people's first impression of the Pikmin series were with Hey Pikmin, because every other game released on a failing home console. At the school I used to go to, I had this one friend who refused to try the demo for Pikmin 3 Deluxe and Pikmin 4, because all she had played of Pikmin was that damn Hey Pikmin demo. This game makes me unreasonably mad. I have had to take mental health breaks from writing this script so that I don't go insane from writing about this stupid f***ing game.
Am I really gonna defile this grave for money? Of course I am!
Guys, look at how dirty that is. Ugh. Look at that. Oh, yucky.
Okay, so I need you guys to understand something. I'm the youngest person in my family. I have a brother and a sister who are both a few years older than me, and all 3 of us grew up playing Pokemon. I wasn't really old enough to understand what Pokemon was until Black and White when I watched my siblings play it, and then I got into playing the games around the time X and Y came out. It's because of this that my family is very nostalgic for Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, and thus, now that my siblings are adults with responsibilities, imagine that, they were able to play the remakes of these games, Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, and actually enjoy them quite a bit. So I need you all to understand just how much danger I'm putting myself in by saying this. But unlike most people on the internet, I pride myself in telling the truth. So here goes nothing. I'm sorry to both of my siblings, and to everybody else out there who's nostalgic for Gen 4. But Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are some of the worst games ever put out by a major company. Let me ask you a question. What are some of your favorite pieces of media? And how exactly do you interact with them? Are you a big member of the discussion of them online, or do you just sit and observe? Personally, I'm a part of a few infamous fan bases. As any Pikmin fan will tell you, we're a bit deranged. After 10 years of waiting for another game, the Pikmin community has been turned into, kind of a wasteland of memes and inside jokes. And the Persona fandom is, well, it's something, that's for sure.
Alright, so, now that we got the internals, I can see the internal workings of the screen. I think I can confidently say that I still don't know what the hell's going on.
Isn't a perfect game, by any means. It can be overly simplistic in its gameplay, and the start of the game may really drag on. But what this game lacks, it makes up for in what it accomplishes to be. If a Miitopia movie was released, it would be the worst movie of all time, because the medium of film can't capture what Miitopia was trying to be. Miitopia thrives on the idea that you created this world. You filled it with these characters. If everyone's Miitopia had the exact same Miis in the exact same roles, it wouldn't feel even a fraction as special. When you get to choose who that last Mii is, it feels monumental, because you had a hand in that outcome. Miitopia is by no means a life-changing experience on the surface. Rather, it's subtle in its ability to make the player think, and the way Miitopia does this is something only a game would be able to do. Historically speaking, a masterpiece is defined as a piece of work by a craftsman accepted as qualification for membership of a guild as an acknowledged master. In the context of video games, we can think about a masterpiece as a game which established, and for the first time perfected, a style or an idea of a game. Think the original Mario Brothers, or the original Zelda. They are by no means the best Nintendo games, or even the best in their respective series. However, they established what platformers and adventure games would be and continue to be to this day. A modern example of this would be The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, as it did a similar thing to the game that started its series. It was genre-defining and industry-shaking, thus being considered by many to be a modern masterpiece. I mean, look at any open-world game after Breath of the Wild, and tell me it wasn't inspired by it. That game changed what it meant to be an open-world game. Miitopia may not seem like this at first glance. It's a pretty primitive RPG, and you don't see its mechanics becoming mainstays across the genre. But Miitopia isn't great because it shakes up its genre. It's great because it takes advantage of its medium in a way no other game has even attempted to do. I understand that I may be reading into this a bit much, and I get that Nintendo probably didn't make this game with the intent of it being considered a masterpiece by anyone. But I think Miitopia has the ability to encapsulate people in a way nothing else can. It shows a game that people can be affected by because they had a hand in its uniqueness to them. Call me crazy all you want, but to me, this is what makes Miitopia so great. The way gameplay and creativity blend together with an amazing overarching story to create a truly personalized and unique experience to the player. That is what makes Miitopia a modern masterpiece. The whole thing is very, I don't know how else to describe it, Arabian Nights. Anyway, I ended up designing the horse in this most recent playthrough after the puppy I adopted a few months back. Ripley! Isn't he just the cutest? Don't you just want to snuggle up with him and let your worries melt away? Oh, isn't he just a silly baby? Isn't he just the silliest? Isn't he just a silly little puppy? Oh, I love you, Ripley. I love you, Ripley. I just want to cuddle with you. You're a silly boy. You're a silly boy. He's the silliest baby of all time. I love you, Ripley. I love you so much. He's so silly. He's so silly puppy. I love him. I love the silly puppy. He's so silly, silly, silly. He's such a silly, silly puppy. Here's sometimes all you have to figure out what I'm actually saying. Why are you reading so much into this? He's such a silly puppy. He's such a silly puppy. Ripley. He's such a puppy, puppy. He's a silly puppy, baby. What were we talking about again? Miitopia? Oh, yeah. But JGPanther! What? The yellow Pikmin trust Charlie on day 1 of Pikmin 3 despite the fact that he did nothing for them. Those Pikmin blindly follow him. That's a good point. Why exactly are the yellow Pikmin helping Charlie here? Trick question, they aren't. All that they do for him is break down a couple of mushrooms blocking his path, which were also blocking their path. It's mutually beneficial, sure, but it's clear that they don't care about his well-being yet, despite following him around. Because the moment that the Behemoth Fossbat appears, they all run away, leaving him completely defenseless and presumably to die until we rescue him once we reach the distant tundra. But even when Alpha and Brittany enter the exact same cave in the exact same way, with not only yellow, but red and rock Pikmin as well, the Pikmin don't run away and instead help the Copites defeat the Fossbat and rescue their friend. Why? Because they owe their life to these people. The yellow Pikmin have no reason to risk their lives defending Charlie on day 1, but they sure as shit have a reason to help out the people who made a genuine effort. I need to write shorter sentences. But okay, let's get this out of the way. Tomodachi Life is a great game, and I love that game equally. Okay? You got that? I'm not dissing our Lord and Savior, okay? Just because I like pancakes doesn't mean I hate waffles. I didn't f***ing say that. and whatever game comes after that. Whether or not Pikmin 4 takes place before Pikmin 3, or 4 is in an alternate universe, it's up for interpretation currently. Editor's note, I wrote this part of the script a few months back. Since then, the official Japanese website for Pikmin 4 has confirmed that not only does it take place in the same timeline as the original 3, but it is a direct sequel. So, yes, there was a lot of speculation at the time that I wrote this about where it takes place in the timeline, but this, it has been confirmed. So just clearing that up, that this still doesn't make any fucking sense. You can summon Pikmin from the park to whatever level you're currently in, which is a cool mechanic, and actually feels like a Pikmin game mechanic. You know what? That's really, really cool. I mean, let's say you come across a body of water in a level, but you don't have any blue Pikmin to get whatever's in there. Well, let's call in some from the park. That feels intuitive, and like you're taking the unique aspects of Pikmin gameplay and applying them to a new genre. This feature was locked behind a $20 amiibo. Oh! These are basically just outing tickets without the silly scenes. These actually are in the 3DS version and are, in my opinion, some of the best items in the game. Keep checking back on that roulette until you see a luxury Jolly Jaunt ticket available, taking up a good portion of the roulette. On the Pikmin, Olimar has his own control scheme. You can't jump. I'm sorry, did I read that right? The script says Olimar can't jump? You can't jump in a 2D platformer? Yeah, that's right, that's right. Instead, you have this jetpack, which sounds cool, but it's really not. You can essentially just hover in the air for a bit to clear gaps and solve puzzles, but like, the Pikmin can't fly with you, so oftentimes it's utilized for 2 seconds before the game rushes you back to your squad so you can actually play the video game. Winged Pikmin can fly with you, which I'll admit is pretty cool and makes them easily the best Pikmin type in the game, especially since you can just throw them up and have them fly towards something. In fact, blue Pikmin can do this in the water. They can just swim to where you tap, making them also pretty useful. When you're not in a water level, or a level with winged Pikmin, the game is just as boring as ever. My god, is this game boring! It's a simple game where you keep playing rock, paper, scissors, and every time you win, you get more and more gold. But if you lose, you don't get any of your earnings, so you have to figure out when it's a good time to tap out. The more interesting option here is the roulette. You can get armor, weapons, food, recovery items, and of course, our Lord and Savior, Jolly Jaunt tickets. So not only did Nintendo leave the series with a different developer, so no wonder it feels like no one working on this game understood how Pikmin games even work, the developer is also known for making not very deep games. Disregarding the games that came out after Hey Pikmin, because of course the people behind Balan Wonderworld also made this, but even when looking at their track record pre-Pikmin, it's clear that they've never really developed a full game, let alone one with as many mechanics and as involved gameplay as the average Pikmin experience. When looking online, we can see that the track record of the studio up to this point is the development of most of the minigames in We Play Motion, Street Pass Plaza, character modeling for the 2012 game Time Travelers. They developed some mobile games, I guess, but the only full games they've ever developed were the 3DS version of Mario and Sonic at the Rio 2016 Olympic Games and Yoshi's New Island. 2 games that weren't received very well. Yet again, I want to stress that the aesthetic of this game is to die for. The way you become a giant, but all that's really happening is the set behind you is getting smaller, that's so cute, and put a huge smile on my face. For all of 2 seconds before I had to play the game again, and by play the game, I mean...
Press the A button. Okay, now press it again. And again. Okay, now press the B button. Okay, now hit that A button again.
Speaking of certain amounts of Pikmin, there's only 20 in each level, which you have to go around and find. Beating a level with Pikmin still alive allows them to go to the Pikmin Park, which is where the onion is, an onion that's already mixed together in the style of the Pikmin 3 Master Onion. This game also soft confirmed purple and white onions because you can see those colors in the mixture. But those types aren't even in this game to begin with. So that's super confusing and pointless.
The level design never warrants utilizing this feature, and even when it does, it'll call in random Pikmin. You can't choose which types you want and how many you want, meaning this feature is never helpful, and even if you think it might be, you still can't use it. I'll be honest. The main reason why I made this video is because one day, I want to cover the full Pikmin series in detail. Because it means so much to me. But I don't want to have to waste time talking about this game once I get to that point in the franchise's history. Pikmin is in a spot now where we as a fanbase can leave this game behind and forget it ever happened. And trust me, I want to forget this game. Hey Pikmin may be a stain on an otherwise amazing series, but it's clear that it didn't have the impact we feared it would have. And hopefully, with how well the franchise has been doing as of late, we won't have to wait too much longer for another game. Hey Pikmin is bad. It's really bad. However, that doesn't mean it has to affect my enjoyment of the rest of the series. It's clear that this game was doomed from the start, and while I may hate it with my entire body and soul, I can't deny that this series is in a good place, and the days of worrying that Hey Pikmin would be the final nail in the Pikmin coffin are over. So now I can move on to talking about what makes the rest of this series so great in the first place. And if I had this much to say on a game that I don't like, then just imagine what I'm going to be able to say about some of my favorite games of all time.
Metaphor is already an amazing game, but keep in mind that I have not finished it, and that this video will act as a sort of first impression, spoiler-free review of the game. I already have so many big projects in the works for this channel that a deep dive into this game most likely won't be happening for a very long time. But even so, I want to talk about it. All of this to say, please don't put spoilers in the comments.
So what immediately sticks out to me is the aesthetic of this game. First of all, I love a good theater/stage play theme. Mario 3 on the NES had this theme, but it wasn't really executed to its fullest potential on that console. It was a lot more subtle because of the capabilities that come with an 8-bit system. In fact, it was so vague that the stage play look was just a fan theory for a very long time until Shigeru Miyamoto clarified in an interview that yes, this was, in fact, what they were going for. It's interesting, though. When you look at the history of this company, it starts to make a lot more sense why their output has been so hit and miss. Stardust was founded by Naoto Oshima and a few other Sega employees in 2010. Oshima's main claim to fame is the fact that he actually designed Sonic and Eggman back in the 90s for the original Sonic the Hedgehog. In fact, many of the employees currently working at Arzest were artists for Sega games, namely Panzer Dragoon. Now, let's not discredit the work of these people. This is a video game studio founded by a man who designed two of the most iconic characters in fiction. So remember, next time you're looking at Sonic the Hedgehog just thinking, damn, what a mammal, remember that you have the developer of Hey Pikmin to thank for that design.
It allows for any character and any role to be played by anyone you want, whether that be an actual person or a fictional character. It's how you get interactions such as Freddy Fazbear beating the absolute shit out of a Minecraft villager. Miitopia is an RPG. That sentence alone has certain people perking up their ears and others running for their lives. Excluding certain parts of the post-game that are more focused on providing a traditional RPG fan a much more difficult experience, Miitopia takes aspect from life simulation games and RPGs. Where have I heard that one before?
Instead of embracing the differences of all these tribes, the higher class people instead choose to shun them for being different and develop solutions to combat any advantages they might have on the upper class. Because
when everyone's super, no one will be.
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever seen a game that looked interesting to you, but you didn't know if you wanted to buy it, so you held off on its release day, but it looked so cool that you eventually just bit the bullet? Then, once you start playing the game, you realize how much of a dumbass you were for even thinking for a moment that there was a world where you didn't buy this game because it's just that good? So Atlas just released a brand new RPG. Let me ask you a question. Shimmy, shimmy, yeah, shimmy, yeah.
Honestly, looking at the studio's track record, I'm surprised this game is even playable. I mean, it's barely playable, but still. Honestly,
Doing this research into this studio has slightly shifted my feelings from pissed the fuck off to just kind of sad. And still pissed off. It's clear.
Later in the game, you unlock Hyper Sprinkles and Shield Sprinkles, which essentially make your Miis do much more damage and shield them. Bet you're surprised by that one. Because of all these systems connecting with each other, you have an infinite amount of ways you can play Miitopia. Whether you want to get super invested and build an unstoppable team, or you just want to make Peter Griffin an airheaded chef and see how many people he can piss off. Games, on the other hand, require player input in an actual system. You don't see movies exclusive to certain TVs, you only see them exclusive to certain apps and services. Paying $4 extra a month so you can watch one show on a streaming service you didn't have is much less of a commitment than buying a $500 console, simply because that's the only way you can play Spider-Man 2. The Spider-Man movies are exclusive to $4 streaming service, the games are exclusive to your next few paychecks.
None of this is even to mention the fact that this game was developed by a whole different studio. Arzest made this game. You know, Arzest. They made We Play Motion, Yoshi's New Island, Street Pass Plaza, and they helped to co-develop Balan Wonderworld and Sonic Superstars. Yeah, I'm starting to understand why this game is bad.
Like, I can spray paint an orange blue and tell you it's a really big blueberry, but once you take off that peel and get to the edible part, you realize that it's still the same old orange. You know, it tastes exactly the same, it was just packaged differently. And even worse, the orange doesn't even taste good! What?
The orange doesn't even taste good!
Shit, I forgot to do my whole question shtick. Let me ask you a question. Are you guys gonna play Hello Kitty Island Adventure? So, the reason for Area 3 and my final team I ended up going with Olimar, now as a princess, the Armored Titan from Attack on Titan as an energetic tank.
Plus, with how differently evolved Whip-Tongue Bulborbs and Fiery Bulblacks have become, I find it very likely that they may also fall into this category as well. Essentially, they've formed their own pack structures separate from the main Grubdog hierarchy, and I think this consists of species which are smart enough to recognize their own young. We can see this in all of the ecology of PNF 404, so I doubt it's a coincidence. The inability to mate with other subspecies I have far less evidence for, but what drove me to this conclusion is, well, I don't think this would end well. In Hey Pikmin, oh shit, I forgot to censor that, I meant Hey Pikmin, there are a few members of the Grubdog family that I have not covered since they only appear in a game which is most likely not canon in the first place. Well, a promise is a promise, and I'm nothing if not frustratingly consistent. So, let me ask you a question. How much do you know about this thing?
You know what baffles me about all of this? Like, what's extremely confusing to me is the fact that this game is rated everyone 10 and up. Excuse me? Disregarding the fact that, I mean, what does this game have that makes it so inappropriate for a 9-year-old? It's a Princess Peach game. I've seen Sesame Street episodes more racy than this.
However, what we do know is that a Fiery Bulblax is a highly efficient Pikmin hunter of all Pikmin types besides red and blue Pikmin. Blue Pikmin can easily escape into the nearest body of water, and while this Bulblax can follow them in, it will extinguish itself in the process, leaving it vulnerable to attacks by water-immune Pikmin. However, on the land, the only type of Pikmin that has a chance of defending themselves are the red Pikmin, or technically purples because Nintendo forgot to patch that out.
And of course, there's the arcade.
Woo! Yeah, baby!
Here, we can use arcade tickets found throughout the levels to play both the roulette and rock, paper, scissors. You'll never guess what you do in rock, paper, scissors. That's right, you gamble.
It represents the characteristics of the average Bulborb with just a slight temperature increase. Let me ask you a question. What do you like about video games? Is it the unique immersive quality of them? Maybe it's a specific style of gameplay that captivates you. Maybe you just enjoy getting lost in a good story. Whatever it is, I guarantee that Hey Pikmin doesn't have it. Fuck you.
All of these are great examples of minor upgrades that capitalize on the FOMO of your average Joe. I mean, I can't just have a slightly lower quality screen on my Switch that I mostly use docked anyways. Take $350, Nintendo. Oh, thank God I upgraded. Video games. We all love them. We all play them. But who needs to play games when you can own everything surrounding the game? As of late, I've noticed that gaming as a medium attracts a very specific type of person. I already own this game multiple times, guys.
The fiery dwarf bullblacks is said in the notes to be a mimicking bread bug of the fiery bullblacks, but even so, it was mistakenly given the Oculus gene, which would technically make it a true bullboard by definition, despite being specifically stated as a mimic. Great job, Hey Pikmin, you did it again! You fucked up! Okay, that is literally everything that could possibly be considered a grub dog. Are we seriously counting this? But let's say this is the case. Okay, humans are on multiple planets for some reason. Why are Pikmin here then? What, are you telling me that the entire ecosystem, food chain, and species across 2 different planets evolved the exact same way to produce the exact same species down to the tiniest detail? No!
After entering Area 4 and being once again stripped of our friends, we wander into a little hollow where we see Pretty-O Speedwagon! We get into the lava-ridden area Karkaton. Karkaton? Krakatoon? Hang on.
Karkaton.
After entering that place, you don't have to own a Nintendo 64 to play Mario 64. There's more than enough official and unofficial methods. But there's a reason why people do. Nothing can replicate that classic feel, and that's my excuse for owning 2 Game Boy Advances. Well, I sure do. Finally, it's time to approach Dio. Get it? Approach? I'm so For 3DS players, you wouldn't have access to the makeup feature anyway, so just using the most popular Miis should work. For some reason, there's something about this medium which warrants, or at least encourages, wasting money. And today, I want to figure out why, and ultimately answer the question, do video game players waste money? Yes, the answer is yes. These are movies. They're video files. The most expensive and high-tech movies that cost the most to make won't have any more trouble running on a crappy TV than something like Frankenstein. Pokemon is timeless and can be enjoyed by all ages. And with how expansive the franchise is, it just goes to show the limits these games can be pushed to and the communities that form around different niches in the Pokemon zeitgeist. Or should I say, the poltergeist. That was such an awful joke.
Let me ask you a question. Do you guys think I'm gonna break this thing?
Essentially, Peach has been invited to see a play, but when she gets there, the theater is taken over by the evil Madame Grape. Which, hey, if my parents named me after a fruit, I'd be a supervillain too. This isn't to say that repetitive gameplay is a bad thing or not fun. No, it's all about how the gameplay loop is execute? So remember when I made that video on Miitopia? Well, I mentioned that it was originally a 3DS game. And here's a fun fact. It was released the same day as a Pikmin game. That must have been the best day of my life, right? No. Hey, Pikmin. Some call it mediocre, some call it bad. I call it my +1 op. Okay, class, now, what's wrong with this? Yes, you in the back. That would be everything, teacher. Very good, A+. Can someone explain to me why I started off this section with the words, alright, let's keep this short, and yet this is one of the longest sections in the video? Alright, let's keep this short. Of course, there are ways to get around this, especially for classic games, but I think it's this aspect of the medium that explains a bit of why my wallet is empty.